Hi everyone, this is Debbie from Project 39 Mini Albums, and I am going to show you how I made this chipboard mini album. So this is a couple of layers. Each letter is 5 layers. It's the decorative paper, it's the cardstock, chipboard, more cardstock, more decorative paper. So I'm going to show you how I made the letters in Cricut Design Space. Please keep in mind, I am not a Cricut aficionado. I just use it very minimally, but I know enough to be able to cut this. So I'm going to show you how I did this, and then I'm going to put it all together and show you how I ended it up, including using the cinch. So here we go into Cricut Design Space, and I apologize for the funky video. I tried to do a screen record and it just wasn't working for me, and I wanted to get this done so I could show you. So here we go. Alright, I am in Cricut Design Space. I'm going to text, and I'm going to type in capitals, B-A-B-Y. So you could do names or ghosts or something. I'm going to choose a different font. I don't want any font I have to pay for, so I'm filtering it out. I'm just going to hit my fonts. You want a sans serif. You don't want anything with all those little, little doohickeys on the letters. So just something flat. I'm going to go with Hatzenschweiler. Somebody who's German could probably pronounce it better. All right, let me move this there. Okay, I'm going to go to Advanced and ungroup letters. So let's start with the B. I'm also going to go ahead and get a, oops, I didn't want text. I want a square, darn it. Grab a square. So I want the square and the letter, the height of them, to both be 5.5 inches. Oops. 5.5 on the height for the B. Okay. Now I don't want the B to get too big, so I'm unlocking this. I'm probably going to have to change the height. I probably could go into here and change it to, let's change it to 2 and 5.5. Okay, and we're going to put them together, but I don't trust my eyeball to make sure they're aligned, so I'm going to align them center because they're both 5.5, and then we'll go down to the bottom and weld. Okay, and now that's done, I'm going to change it to a pretty color. Alright, so that is there. Let's do the A. So, where'd you go, A? You're acting weird. B, get out of the way. It's A's turn. Let's go and get a shape. Let's get a square. Okay. I want the square, well, let's do the letter first. I want the letter height to be 5.5. And I want the square to be, I don't know how wide I want it, so let's do 5.5 for the height. And I'm going to reduce the size what's on my screen so we can take a look at this. So I want the A to show a little bit behind the B, so that's probably a good place. And this is going to be too wide, so let's change the width to 4.5. Oops, then height 5.5. Unlock it. That was silly of me. 4.5 for the width. Now let's move this A down. That's 5.5, that's 5.5. We'll shift to group them together, align them, center, and hit weld. And so here, let me send that to the back. So that's how that looks. Let's change this to a nice pretty color. There. Not that it makes a difference, but it just looks prettier. All right, good. Now we've got that. Let's play with this B. Change the height on that B to 5.5. Let's grab a square. Change the height to 5.5. I'm going to send to back. So I want that B to be about here. So that means if I line up the square, and then we'll match this up. All right, height is 5.5 on both of them. Select both, align, center, and weld. And make it a pretty color. Well, let's do periwinkle. And let's send to back and put it there. So that's looking pretty good. Let's see what we can do with the Y. 5.5. Now the Y is a little funky. He wants to go there. Arrange, send to back. So that'll be okay. Maybe I want a little more room just because there's more room with them. So get a square. I'm gonna unlock it and go about here. Let me change the height to 5.5. Bring the Y down, and it's got to come in there. That's pretty good. All right, let's align, center, and weld. And we don't want that black. We want a pretty yellow, I guess. And then I'll arrange, send to back, and put it here so we can take a look at it. To be honest, I think this Y is a little bit too long. So I could just hit the back arrow a couple of times. To get it where it wasn't welded. Okay, here we are. So here I have 9.6. Let's do 8.5. I don't want to go too small. And unlock it. And 5.5. See, is that going to be too small? Let's align it. Align, center, weld, arrange, send to black, send to back. Now see, now that's not big enough. So you can change the whole 11, unlock, and 5.5. Let's see if that's okay. Nope, 11.5. Now I don't want it to get too big, but I'll show you what we're going to have to do when we're done. So that's better. Now you can see the Y. Before you weren't able to see it. So that's okay, but now here's the problem. The next step we're going to do is an offset, which will make it 20% larger. And we're already at, the biggest one is 11.5. I'm going to group all of them, and I'm going to unlock this. Height we want to be 5.5, and the width 11. So it shrinks the letters a little bit. You want to be careful about shrinking the individual letters too much, but I don't want it to get too big. All right. So we're pretty good with that. And make sure they're all 5.5. I think when I grouped that together, I changed things, but I'm going back to 5.5. That's still under 11. Okay, so we've got our basic letters, and they will look fabulous together. Now I'm going to change them all to a color. They're going to be pink. Okay, just so I can work with it. All right, now we're going to take each one individually. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to put them together and duplicate. So we'll have two sets of pink letters, and the pink represents the decorative paper. But I'm going to have one to go forward, one to go backwards. Meaning, I know this is probably dark, I'm going to turn on the light. Meaning, we want to cover the front and the back. This is a reverse letter. That's a reverse letter. That's a reverse letter. So we need a set for front and back in the designer paper and in the cardstock. So we have that set now. I want to move the reverse ones out of the way. I'm just going to pile them up together just to give me more room. Okay, now we're going to go to the original B, and we're selecting it, and we're going to go to offset. Now offset normally offsets by 1/4 of an inch, 0.25. That's too much for me. I like 0.20. So we'll hit apply, and there's these two different options. You can have rounded corners or square corners. I just prefer rounded. You can play around with it, see what you like. So I hit apply, and it gives me the offset. Like, it's not a shadow, it's just 20% bigger all around. So I'm going to put the B up here. I'm going to move the offset there. We'll hit the Y. Offset. It'll remember the 20%. Apply. So I'll put that up there and put the offset down here. We'll do the other B, offset, apply. All right, B goes up here, this B goes down here, and we get to do the A, offset, apply. So that goes there. All right, now I'm going to move a little further. I'm going to take all of my offsets and do something with them. It doesn't like that I'm taking up all this room. So you get over there. Okay. All right, so now these are 20% bigger than our original. So I need 3 different sets of this. I need 1 set in chipboard, and I need 2 sets to cover with the cardstock. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to select all 4 of these and duplicate. I'll move 1 set down. This original set, I'm changing the color to gray. That's our chipboard. This set, I'm going to make blue. I'd really like an off-white because that's what I used, but it doesn't matter really. It's just so we can differentiate what it is, and when it chooses what mats get cut out, it'll put it on different mats. So we're going to duplicate a set of that. There's the duplicate, and we're going to flip. So what you've got is the letter in chipboard, the 2 sets of letters in cardstock, the 2 sets of letters in the decorative paper. So that is what we need. Now let's tell it to make it, and let's see what it's going to try to make. Alright, so it's going to want a piece of 12 by 12 chipboard for each letter, which is alright, because if you have scraps of chipboard, then you can just put the scrap it. If you add a 7 by 6 inch scrap of chipboard, you could put it on and it'll cut out that B. You'll need like 10 by 7 for that B. For the Y, you'll need a full 12 by 7 for that. So I would make the size of your letters based on what chipboard. Another thing is, I used the lightweight chipboard, which was fabulous because it cut. I had to change the pressure. Instead of default, I think I selected more, and it cut it without a problem. The default one, it came out okay, but there was a couple of rough edges that I had to take an emery board to. So anyhow, so it gives us 4 sheets of the chipboard. 1, 2, 3, well, really only 4 sheets of the pink, and that represents the decorative paper. So 4 12 by 12 sheets, and look, this one A just uses a scrap 8 by 6, so you can go through scraps if you've dug into the paper. And it chooses 5, 6, 7 of the blue, and that's going to be the cardstock. So again, with that, you could use scraps of cardstock. If you have artisan cardstock and you've got an 11 by 7 piece, you can use that for it. You don't have to use a whole 12 by 12. So that's what we've got. I'm not going to tell it to cut here, and I'm not going to show you cutting because that's pretty boring, but you can get it from there. And so let me go from this section to putting it together. All right, I'm going to do this in fast motion in a voiceover. So that is the first letter B, that's the chipboard, and I am adding the cardstock on top of it. And there's the reverse one. So 1 letter done. Obviously there's not too much to this. The only thing is just make sure that you line up the top and bottom as best you can. I found out that if you don't, then you can just grab an emery board and just shave it down a little bit and get it exactly the way you need it. See, emery board works wonders. All right, B-A-B, Y, why not? Okay, so there we go, and we're done putting on the cardstock. Now here I'm trying to figure out which I want for the front and the back, because of course it's double-sided paper, and as you can see, that 1B has the fox cut out of it, but I didn't like the fox cut out of it on the front. You'll see a little later I end up putting the fox on the other B. No, I'm sorry, rabbit on the A. I'm also inking around the edges. Again, I want to differentiate between the cardstock and the designer paper. All of my tools for inking have all these wacko colors on it, so I'm using an old, not an old, just a piece of a makeup sponge, and it works fine. See, there I really liked the rose, but it was too dark, and I just decided not to go that route. Getting in the inside of those letters was tricky. So anyhow, there's the B, and there's the back. I went with the more muted tones rather than the one that's bright. This paper is beautiful. This is Baby Dreams Girl by Country Craft Creations. This paper was made exclusively for Country Craft Creations, and it's the only place you can buy it. So I did go again with the muted tones on the Y, which is fine because if you have a little cut apart, which I did, I found a little fox holding a balloon, it popped against that background. There was a little I don't know, just a little serif on the Y. That's why that bump is on the top. I just cut it off and just sort of, we're going to ignore that bump on the top. All right, so there we go. Now I decide, not the smartest thing, but I go ahead and start decorating. I put little pearl sequins on there. I put the flowers. I go ahead and take the glitter glue. I'm trying to see what kind, but it's one of the Nuvo drops. It's a very light iridescent. But it was silly of me to decorate, and you will see why in a little bit. I decided to add a little bit of lace inside just to get a different texture. I probably should have antiqued it some way or just scruffed it up with some distress ink, but it's okay. It adds a nice little touch. So there are balloons on the one next to it, and I took some embroidery floss and just actually tied it around two of the balloons and taped it on the back of one. So here I'm deciding, all right, these are scraps. What can I do with the scraps? So I try to figure out what common size I have. I cut it down, and then I add it. I'm off on the paper trimmer, that's why you don't see it. Then I cut it down to whatever the smallest size was. Inking around the edges, and then I'll glue these. These papers are probably about 3 inches wide, so they're not really wide, but you know what? It gives you a spot to put some photos and even some journaling. If you haven't seen the walkthrough, I will link that in the description box. Go take a look at the walkthrough. I go in detail on the papers. So now I cut out 6 pieces of paper. I think they were cardstock, just cardstock. And I think they were 5.5 by 6. And I cut some paper, some decorative paper, and put it on. And I also cut some of those, you see those yellow squares up top? I cut those 4 by 4 so you could put 3 by 4 pictures on it. And I just put them either on the corner on the top or the corner on the bottom and paper pieced together. Here's my scrap bin. Some of the scraps to put on the bottom and fill the space. So if you don't have a full 4 by 6 photo, you would have to trim it down anyhow. You could use just half of a 4 by 6 photo, you know, cut it 3 by 4. Anyhow, that's what I'm doing here. I'm just filling in the spaces, and it's sort of a mini album in a mini album. So I've got the, well, again, you need to take a look at the walkthrough, but between the second B and the Y, there are 6 pages, which gives you 12 surfaces to put photos in. So again, take a look at the walkthrough. I think the hardest part, not hard, most tedious part was inking around the edges here. So almost done, need one more piece, go through my scrap bin, see what I can find. I love the star paper. I mean, all the paper is good, but if you're going to just use a little piece of it, that star paper looks nice. Sort of matches with the yellow. I didn't have the exact color, but it was close enough. Looking at this now, I could have also used gray. I could have also used another white. Lots of ones I could have used. I realized I could use one more because I was doing one page of full designer paper, front and back, and then one page with the squares. So I just decided I need one more to finish it up. Here I'm cutting the little pieces. One more. I promise. This is it. I don't remember what that one piece is off to the right. Done. Cutting it. Which one should I use? Decisions, decisions. Okay. That's it. Inking, gluing. Really, really done. Okay. Let's move that aside. And now I'm going to show you how I used the cinch. This is going to be fun. Alright, so this is the mini cinch. You can't put in that much at a time. I tried. Yeah, I think I ended up with one piece of the one of the letters and nothing else. So you have this little thing to line it up, and then you have to move it over and put it in a hole. It's not as good as the other cinch. I gave away my other cinch. That was silly of me. Really should have kept it, but when we moved into the RV, you have to worry about how much things weigh. You can't have too much weight in the RV, and that cinch was pretty heavy, so I gave it away. And I ended up buying this mini cinch, which was probably fine, but the bigger cinch would have been easy. So am I going to show you me cutting all the holes? Yeah, probably. So again, you line it up, then you move it down, and there's a peg. You can't really see it. It's on the far left-hand side. It's that little blue thing, just to make sure all your holes are lined up. I think this one they didn't line up perfectly, so I had to put it back in. This one was interesting because it still has the lace on. I was like, is it going to cut through the lace? It sure did. And here is the last letter, the B, which is the first letter. I don't know why I was having such a hard time with this one. But anyhow, oh, I know why. Because I had to take off the flowers and all the decorating I did on the front. All right, hint, note to self, don't decorate it until you've put it all in. At least don't have any dimensional embellishments. All right, now you do this thing where you put the coils on the cinch, you cut them, and then you put the first page in last or the last page in first. And I mean, I just did it last week and I already forgot exactly how it was. So I call in the big guns. My husband, that's my husband's hand there. He's like, no, 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 you have to do it this way. He's more mechanically minded than I am. So he figured it out for me. I think what it is you leave the last page to put on top, facing each other. You'll see. Oh, I did get it. Okay, I already got it in. Then I realized that the coils were a little too big. Then you flip around the back page and the first page. I glued down the ribbon. I'm going to glue down the flowers. I decided to put some more ribbon on the spine only because the ribbon doesn't go all, or the holes didn't go all the way to the top. There was a gap of about, I don't know, half an inch on some of the letters. I didn't read the directions, I guess. So that's it. So after I did the voiceover, I figured I really should just show you what I have on here rather than making you go back and look at the walkthrough. But anyhow, I have some snowball trim. I don't know what else you call it. I have some seam binding that I crimpled up. See, this is where there's an extra hole and not a coil. So I just tied some ribbon there. No one will ever know. There's the flowers that I had to take off but put back on. A couple of pearls. They didn't add, I mean, that was not a problem. So there is the little lace. And again, here's a piece of paper that I figured you could write the baby's date of birth and height and weight and, you know, whatever else you want to. You could put a photo here. Would have to be a small one, or maybe a footprint, or I don't know, something. So room here for either more journaling or small photos. And this is where I put those smaller papers that you could add photos to. Here's the balloons with the embroidery floss. So perfect spot for a picture there. And you could put a picture there and just move the embroidery floss over the picture if you wanted to. Room there for a photo. And so this is the spot where I had the 5.5 by 6 inch pieces of cardstock that I glued on the decorative paper. So there we go. And again, room for a 3x4 photo or 4x4, or you could have a 4x6 that you've cut down. So that's what helps make this more of an album besides just the letters. Room there, and then there's the little fox with some extra balloons. So, and there's the back. And there we go. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't be too hard on me with my terrible Cricut tutorial, but hopefully it's easy to follow. And if that's something you wanted to do, you could. I mean, now that you've seen it, the possibilities are endless, right? Not just baby, but Halloween, Christmas. You could write Santa and do a whole album. I don't know, just the possibilities are endless. And if you don't have the cinch, you could easily just punch 2 or 3 holes in and get those rings that'll open up, and that's just as good. So there we go. Thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. Hit the like button and just give me some love. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a fabulous day.